Happy Valentine's Day. Let's talk about making babies, shall we? Think it's about time.
Fun science, fun science, fun science, it's a science of fun, yeah.
So personally, I find reproduction to be just one of the most irresistible topics to learn about in science. I think this is for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm a human, and humans like to reproduce, we're pretty good at it too, but also because so much of reproduction is just so incredibly weird. The variation of mad and wonderful and disgusting methods that organisms on this planet use to reproduce is so vast, but every single different possible type of reproduction that exists on this planet fits into just two different groups: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is the method whereby the offspring is an exact genetic copy of its parent. A clone, basically. And this can happen in a number of different ways. There's fission, where the original organism grows and splits itself into two separate organisms. This is what bacteria use to reproduce. There's budding, where a large organism creates a little bud on its surface with the correct genetic material in it that then breaks off and grows on its own. It's how yeast reproduces. And then there's also vegetative reproduction, where you take a cutting from a plant that cutting in the ground and let it grow into its own organism. Sexual reproduction, on the other hand, the one that you're probably more familiar with, is where two cells from two separate organisms, a male cell and a female cell, combine and grow to form an offspring that has a mix of genetic material from both of its parents. And that's sex. Oh yeah! For most people though, the interesting bit doesn't seem to be the cells and their genetic code, but it's the method by which these two cells are allowed to meet each other. In humans, just as it is in many other animals, a male makes a bunch of male cells, inserts them into the female using the pair's sexual organs, a single male cell fertilizes a single female cell, and a baby grows inside the female until it's ready to pop out. However, in no way is this the normal method that nature uses when it comes to sexual reproduction. It's just the one that we're most familiar with for obvious reasons. Take the seahorse, for example. In this case, the female inserts her eggs into the male, and then the male fertilizes them and incubates them and eventually gives birth to them all by himself. And then there's the mountain slug, in which there aren't any males or females, just hermaphrodites, which means that every individual has both male and female sexual organs. In this instance, two slugs hang off a tree branch together by a string of their own slime, release their sexual organs from behind their heads, and then fertilize each other for about an hour or so before biting each other's sexual organs off. And actually, even though some plants reproduce asexually, some of them reproduce sexually as well. In fact, the flower is actually a plant's sexual organ with both the male and the female parts inside of it. But the variation doesn't stop there, because there are actually some animals that have decided to start reproducing asexually as well. Like there are certain types of shark and lizard that have just given up on men entirely and just have babies anyway. And yes, those babies are exact genetic clones of their mothers. It actually raises quite an interesting question, which is that if there are animals in the world that can reproduce asexually, why do men exist? Why am I required? And with that, why does sexual reproduction exist? What is the point of it? Well, fortunately, the answer is relatively simple, and it's this: sexual reproduction allows for more variation. It means lots of different organisms with lots of different traits, which in turn means a higher chance of survival. Imagine, for example, that all of a sudden, the whole world just got really, really cold. If you were an organism created by asexual reproduction, and you couldn't handle the new weather, you would die, and not only that, but every single other individual in your entire species would also die. However, if you're a species produced by sexual reproduction, although some of you will probably die, others may have nice thick skin, or big furry coats, or they might be smart enough to make a fire. They have these extra traits that allow them to adapt to the environment around them and continue to survive. And that, I think, is why we are so wired to be so fascinated by reproduction, to think that it's so important, to think that it's something taboo, something that's awkward to talk about, something that we've created whole ceremonies surrounding, because it is the thing that has allowed us to evolve and exist in the first place, to survive. Nature just prefers sex. And frankly, so do I. Should I have done the wink? I can always cut it out.
You've just had the almost imponderable joy of watching Charlieissocoollike, which makes you like cool.
I made the room pink. Do you wanna... Yeah. Video making.